From the kitchen of the cabin, a look at the games that made us who we are in Ben and Steve's Advent Calendar. So, here we are, Nikolaus, December the 5th. Stevie!
I can't believe we've been doing these every day for 5 days.
You know, I'm knackered. And
it's amazing what we provide to the listeners.
Isn't it? And, you know, you're in New York. You're having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure these are out on time. I mean, you're a hell of a trooper, Steve, frankly.
You know what? I'm in the city of my birth. And
that's right.
I will do what it takes. I think I mentioned I'm at a WeWork. And I'm going to do the work. I'm going to put in the work. Because this is it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the patrons.
So is that a very small work or a place where you manipulate urine, Steve? Steve?
It's very funny, Ben. Very funny.
Steve.
Ben
what do you think of that gag? What do you think of that Christmas gag?
Maddox. Funny guy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very kindly. So, yeah. So, it's Nikolaus in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, German-speaking countries. And in America, it's go out and buy things, you traitor day.
I mean, it's a Monday, so fucking get your ass to work.
If you don't buy stuff like loads of like useless junk every day, do you get like hung by a gibbet in Times Square?
I mean, you certainly get audited by the IRS because it's mighty suspicious behavior. Anti-American. You might have to face Congress.
Consume, baby. Consume. Yep. Anyway, so I've got a feeling I might have played this once, but frankly, Steve, I know nothing about this game. So I'm just going to sit back and allow you to tell the listeners what the game is and why it's the greatest.
So, as usual, you need to travel back in time with me to the early 1990s. Possibly the greatest era in human history to date. Probably we will not be surpassing the 90s going forward because the world now is terrible, not likely to get better. There's that always half full sentiment, Ben.
Oh, you're just trying to be sort of dour and European, but your Americanism comes through,
and it's going to come through especially with this game because back in the 90s when I was playing board games in my northern New Jersey club, mostly what I've talked about so far are like these very, very long games, either the train games, the Crayon Rail games, or History of the World. And I played quite a few other Avalon Hill games. Avalon Hill was the publisher that loomed largest for me at the time. But I think I mentioned there were these like Euro games that would occasionally sneak in, and someone else would always have to bring them because I couldn't really afford to buy games. I mean, they were quite relatively expensive back then. I didn't really know where to get them. I had no notion of like curating a collection of board games. Like, what should I buy? How should I know what's coming out? I had no one to recommend games to me. I would just show up to the club and people would bring games and I would play them, and that worked out fine. And the game I'm going to talk about today is one of those games that just showed up one day, and it turned out to be what we might call today a filler game, although I think it's a bit longer than what we normally expect these days for a filler game. But it's still very light and a lot of fun, but it's got some deep chess-like characteristics, and I think it's super clever. And that game is Condottiere, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah, so, you speak Spanish though, right?
Well, it's Italian.
Is that Spanish? Is it Spanish?
It's Italian.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, that's what I meant. You're Italian-American. You should definitely know how to pronounce it, though.
Condottiere.
Very good. Very good.
Condottiere.
Gabagool.
Condottiere. What are you doing over here in Florence? So, Condottiere is set in the Italian Renaissance amidst a bunch of warring city-states, but who cares? What's brilliant about this game is that it's a strategic board game and a strategic card game in one. And now that I think about it, it kind of has some like trick-taking game aspects to it. You get a hand of cards. The size of that hand is determined by the number of cities that you control. And you get a totally random assortment of armies and special effect cards. And the way that you deploy these cards determines whether or not you're able to capture additional cities. And if you are the current player, you get to decide where the battle is taking place in Italy, and you can choose whichever city you want on this map of Italy, and you don't even have to participate in the battle. You can simply say, the battle is happening over here, and then you can fold your arms and let everybody else fight it out. Because you only get dealt the one hand of cards per round, and that hand of cards has to last you until the next round. I mean, I'm not going to get into like a full explanation of the rules of this game, but it's just like so clever how this game combines. So I want to say it's a highly thematic game. It combines this sort of like this chess-like abstract board game concept with like the cleverness of deceiving people, just like you might imagine princes in Renaissance Italy were attempting to deceive and outmaneuver one another. Because you can play an army that's worth 10, and then that convinces your opponents to put down big money cards right after you because they want to win the battle. But then you play a drummer, and the drummer then you play a scarecrow, and the scarecrow lets you take back your 10 into your hand to save it for later because you don't actually care about that city. Then somebody plays like Joan of Arc, and Joan of Arc is worth 10 as well. And then they play winter, and winter means everybody, no matter what their value, is only worth 1 except Joan of Arc. It doesn't affect Joan of Arc, and that's a brilliant move. Or maybe you get into a position where you're just like one like army ahead of your opponents, and you play the key to the city, battle's over, you win. Or maybe you convince everybody else to play out their hand of cards because it's a vitally important city for everybody to control, and then you play the Pope, battle's over, nobody wins. It's just like so much fun going back and forth with other players and feeling all the emotions of getting away with it or not getting away with it, thinking that you're smarter than them and then realizing they're smarter than you. This is like the game of Renaissance Italy, I think, and it doesn't take very long. It's got like big, beautiful playing cards. I mean, I don't think I'd ever seen cards this lovely before, back in 1995 anyway. And I think we need to get it to the table again because I haven't played it in a long time. And you can get an edition of it now that comes in like a reasonably sized box. The box that I have is like huge and unwieldy, but it stands up and it just deserves to see the light of day once again. Condottiere, Ben.
So explain this to me because
Have I
the way
sold
you're
it to
talking about
you?
it. Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And why do you think that this? So you've got a couple of games on this list that are sort of bona fide classics, and this sounds like it should be one of those 90s games that is a bona fide classic. Why do you think it hasn't remained sort of in the forefront of gamers' minds over the last 25 years?
I don't know. Do people not talk about this game? Maybe you're right. It's apparently Spiel des Jahres recommended as I look at the Board Game Geek entry. It's been reprinted. There was a Fantasy Flight edition as recently as 2007. This is good content. Me reading the Board Game Geek entry, right? But you're right. It's not like Pandemic. It's not like Dominion. It's not like Settlers, and yet it comes from that era of games. And maybe it's like a little bit too thinky, a little bit too abstract. Not a game that fits obviously into any one particular genre. I don't know. It's a good question, and I'm really not sure. But I just think it's a load of fun because it's got that moment that like really good games have, where you just go, oh. You know what I mean, Ben? You know what I mean?
I don't know what that noise represents, Steve. I assume it means cognitive satisfaction.
Disheartenment. Oh no! Like you had a plan, it was going to be beautiful, and then you have your ass handed to you because somebody plays the drummer, thus doubling the value of all of their armies.
It's the second best thing in gaming, I think. I think the best thing in gaming is meticulously executing a plan and it working. But the second best thing in gaming is meticulously executing a plan and some bastard whipping the rug out from under you just as you think you've done it. I mean, it's pure joy, right?
Yeah, and this game has no dice, so it doesn't have that kind of randomness where you can just say, the dice were against you. I mean, there are some games where you can legitimately win if you just like roll sixes the whole time and you can just sweep everyone before you. It does have the randomness of the cards being dealt, but you still have to play strategically. You have to play with the hand that you're dealt, because everybody gets a random hand of cards. There's no good hand, there's no shit hand. There's the hand that you get, and there's your position on the board and how you leverage one against the other. So for such a small game and a small package, well, in my case, small game and a big package, but the board itself is very small. It delivers so much. There's so much going on. There's so much interaction between the different games that you're playing at any one time. And I think it just comes off brilliantly, and more people should give it a go.
Thank you for listening to this show and indulging our overweening nostalgia. If you would like to support the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/5G4D. And we both wish you a very Merry Christmas.